we're paused up here. I'm going to take a moment to tell you a little bit about how these caves were formed. So science tells us around 500 million years ago, this area was completely flat, and it was covered by a large ocean. Now in this ocean, there were tons of plant and animal life that thrived, but eventually that life died. Those skeletons and shells sank to the bottom of the ocean, mixed in with that sediment, and it formed limestone. Limestone is the primary rock you'll be seeing throughout the caves today, and it also makes up the Rocky Mountains around us. Now fast forward about 75 million years ago, there was a massive plate tectonic shift. Two huge plates beneath the Earth's crust came together. They crashed, forcing the Rocky Mountains upward, giving us the gorgeous view we have today. Now when this happened, tons of cracks spread throughout the surrounding lands. We call these cracks lifelines. They are what make our caves possible. I'm going to show you a good example of a lifeline once we get inside, tell you a little bit more about those. Now, as we go in, I am going to take a picture of each group or family, the people you came here with. This is primarily a safety measure. That way I make sure everyone who goes in with me also comes back out. And if you don't make it out, it makes a great photo for the newspaper. Now, I will warn you, at the end of the tour, I'm going to turn into a salesman and try to sell you those photos back. You are under no obligation whatsoever to buy those. It's just part of my job. Keep in mind, if you're taller than me, you might want to watch those heads. There's a little bit of low clearance in some areas. My height and shorter, you'll be fine. It'll be a little dark at first. Your eyes just need a couple minutes to adjust, and they will adjust. So I recommend removing those sunglasses as we go in. And if there's anything you wanted to toss out, there's a trash can right there. And if everyone is ready, we can head in the cave.
Got a camera, Jacob? Okay, my sunglasses are going in my bag. Oh, look at this. And my hat. Watch your head.
Alright, if I get on my first group, stand up there by that gate. I'm going to take your picture.
Jacob and I. Jacob, is on a video. I thought there was 200 stairs all at the beginning.
Not all at once, thankfully.
Yeah.
Hi group, make sure we stay in this room here, please. Yep. Do not wander off without me. I most likely won't be able to find you. Get on this tour. This tour will be a little shorter and we'll focus more on science, geology, and history, and I won't be spending the entire time trying to freak you out. Now in this room are some of the main formations you're going to be seeing. Up there, those icicle-like structures, those are stalactites. They hang tightly to the ceiling. These form when mineral water drips down, leaves behind layer after layer of those minerals, which builds up over thousands of years to create that icicle structure, which is pretty cool. The stalactite's counterpart is a stalagmite. Now this room unfortunately doesn't have many good examples of it, but there are some on the wall over there, those little bumps. Typically they're on the ground, but they will be on overhanging ledges like that. Those form when mineral water drips down, often off a stalactite, and those minerals will start to build up on a small mound on the ground. All right, my group, we can start heading to the next room. Excuse me, I'm gonna slide through you here. We will step up onto some concrete, and that will slope down, so please be sure to watch your step.
I didn't bring my headlamp.
Yeah.
Group, do you all remember those lifelines I was telling you about? Awesome. Here's a good example of a lifeline. That crack along the ceiling allowed water to seep through. The water mixed with carbon dioxide from decaying plant animal material and formed a very weak acid called carbonic acid. Now, carbonic acid is great at eating away calcium, which is the primary ingredient in limestone. So that acid seeped through, ate away layer after layer, coming deeper and deeper. You can see these ridges along the walls. That is the receding water line as these caverns were dug out deeper. Now they were originally filled with water, but after a time the area rose above the water table and that water drained out, leaving them hollow. So, does anyone here like to drink carbonic acid? I bet many of us have had it, maybe even today. It's in soda. That's why you gotta brush your teeth after you drink soda, because it'll give you cavities. Although in here, we like to call them cavities. That's right, I'm gonna have dad jokes for you you on this tour. Now up in this cavity are more of those stalactites I was telling you about. You'll see how they often form along lifelines in those rows. That is because rainwater and snowmelts can still drip through those cracks, although very slowly, to come down to create those formations. Now another formation you'll be seeing is called Flowstone. It's back here. Flowstone forms when a sheet of water flows over a wall layer after layer, building up to create that frozen waterfall shape. Now this room we are currently in is called Oriental Gardens. It is called that because of this formation back there. If you can see a village with a temple in the back, houses in the surrounding valley. Now of course every village needs its own protector, so this village has its very own gargoyle guarding it up here. You can see head, feet, and a tail. This room also has the longest stalactite in the cave. It is 8.5 feet long, which is super impressive because here at Cave of the Winds, it takes 800 to 1,000 years for 1 cubic inch to grow. Now that's about the size of your thumbnail. Can anyone guess what we named this stalactite? It's a super creative name. We call it the longest stalactite in the cave. So the reason our cave is so slow growing is because it is dry. Caves need moisture to grow. And our cave is very dry due to a few reasons. One, the area. The climate is dry. It's arid here. Also, when we put in tunnel entrances, a lot of humidity left the cave. And when people come through, our skin and our clothes sucks the moisture right out of the air. So that's why our cave is slow growing. It's so slow growing that it's almost considered dormant. Because of this, we don't have to worry about the cave flooding. Even if it's pouring outside, the biggest thing that will happen is the dirt in the adventure room might get a little bit wet. Alright, we are going to start making our way into the next room. Please watch your step to the left. There is a little bit of a toe back there. Be sure to look up at the ceiling. You'll be able to see how those lifelines have opened up over the years. Now, if there's anybody you were hoping to get rid of on this tour, send them down this tunnel. Sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't. Alright, so this room has another formation, except it is one you can touch. It's to your left. It's called a Stalag of Height. Yes, that rail there is for your use. Please use it if you need. So welcome to the Valley of Dreams. This room used to be the last room in the original tours. When the cave first opened in 1881, these tours were 6 to 8 hours long of crawling. They cost about $1, which is around $200 in today's money. So only the very wealthy could afford these tours. They would show up in fancy suits, really nice dresses, go crawl around in a cave for 8 hours. Now since these tours were 8 hours, they could only do one a day. Due to this and the price, they were very exclusive. Now they would crawl about 4 hours to get into this room and then turn around 4 hours back. That passageway we just came through didn't used to be a passageway. It was a solid wall. He crawled here, leaned up against that wall to take a break, felt a breeze on the back of his neck. Now he knew where there's wind, there's more cave to be explored, so after the tour he went to Cave of the Winds and said, hey, you guys should excavate this. But the cave originally told him, no we can't, we don't have the money. But George Jeffries was a very wealthy railroad man. He said, don't worry, I have the money, I'll do it for free. But as we know, nothing comes free in this world, so we had to grant him 2 conditions. Condition number 1, we have to say his name on every tour from now until the end of time. So hence, George Jeffries. Condition number 2, we have to put the first 3 lines of his favorite poem up on the wall here. It reads, dreams of mountains, as in their sleep, they brood on things eternal. Now this is a very beautiful piece of poetry, but it actually has nothing to do with Cave of the Winds, nor is it even about Colorado. It was written about the Grand Canyon. But a promise is a promise, so we stuck that up there, and it's thanks to George Jeffries we have access to Oriental Gardens and the Adventure Room. Alright, if y'all could slide to your left all the way towards that rail, I'm going to put my flashlight down there. That right there is Pickett's column. A column forms when a stalactite and a stalagmite grow so long that they eventually touch and become one solid formation. Now, can anyone guess why it is so shiny? That is from people touching it. That's about 50 years of human hand oil built up on that rock there. On those original tours, they were actually encouraged to rub that column for good luck before they headed back. Now, they didn't have the same knowledge we have about caves today. They didn't know they were actually damaging it. That is considered to be a dormant formation because it can no longer grow. But if you leave it alone for several tens of thousands of years, it may begin to recover. So that's why we ask that you try your best not to touch anything in here. We want to keep our caves healthy and growing so future generations can continue to enjoy it. Alright, we're going to slide up a little. I have another formation I want to point out to you. So that formation I wanted to show you is back that way. That is painted curtain. That is a really neat example of flowstone. Now the white stripes are calcite, which comes from calcium that were the bones that were originally in the ocean that sank down to form the limestone. The red stripes are iron oxide, more commonly known as rust, which gives the red color. So be looking throughout the caves, you'll see spots that are white, spots that are red. Yep, that's the different mineral compositions in the limestone. Now, as we move on, there are two more formations we're going to pass. The first will be to your left. It is called botryoid or cave popcorn. Please don't eat it. Next will be a red hole in the ceiling up into your right. That is giant's bleeding heart. Now, I'm going to point out each of those as we pass. Please point them out to the person behind you so no one misses anything. First formation, that botryoid or cave popcorn forms when mud and minerals mix in with water and the water starts to bubble. And that creates air bubbles that get trapped in the mud and the minerals will crystallize around those bubbles, which creates that popcorn shape. Now the second formation you saw, giant's bleeding heart, is another example of flowstone that has that iron oxide in it. It's really cool. Now this room we are currently in is called Guide's Rest. It is called that because on those original tours, this was the first room they had enough space to sit up comfortably in, and this is where they would eat their lunch. Alright, I'm going to shine my flashlight back there, watch those eyes. Now that ridge there is where the original floor used to be. So as you can see, still not a lot of room, but it was more than they were used to. Now the reason we're not crawling right now and our tours aren't 8 hours is due to a process called cave pushing. With cave pushing, they come into already existing caverns and dig the floor underneath, pushing that rock and debris into empty dead-end passages such as the one here. Now you'll see many examples of this throughout the tour, but this is one of the best. Be looking for that. It's thanks to cave pushing we're able to move around as freely as we do. Now when they dug out that floor, they found that the rock was naturally formed that way back behind y'all. That is Guide's chair and table. So if you can see how the guide would sit there to eat their lunch while the rest of us lowly peasants were left to eat on the floor. Now you might have noticed this room has a little bit of a breeze in it. That is because caves will, in a sense, breathe. When the air pressure changes outside, caves will move air back and forth throughout their passages to equalize that pressure inside and outside. It's thanks to this that we don't have to worry about breathing. When the wind comes through, it brings plenty of fresh oxygen for us to breathe. Any larger cave gets enough airflow that they don't have to worry about that. Whereas with smaller caves, that is something they have to consider when they're thinking about commercializing. Are there any questions so far? No questions? All right. So when a lot of people come to caves, the first thing they ask about is bats. What kind of bats do we have here? We actually have none that live in our cave, but we have found 3 species of bats staying here before. The little brown bat, the big brown bat, and the big-eared bat. Now you most likely won't see any on this tour just because they don't like our noise, our lights, we scare them off. They tend to stay in the less populated areas of the cave. They're nocturnal, so they sleep inside caves during the day, fly out at night. Now, these bats here primarily eat bugs. They'll eat up to about half their weight in bugs in a single evening. There are around 1,400 species of bats worldwide. They make up 25% of all mammals on Earth. They live just about anywhere except for the poles and extreme deserts. Now the size range between bats is really cool. The smallest bat is also the world's smallest mammal. It's the bumblebee bat and it weighs less than a penny. The largest bat is the flying fox bat and it has a wingspan of up to 6 feet.
Wow.
The really cool thing about bats is the way they navigate through echolocation. Now if you've ever heard the saying, blind as a bat, well bats actually are not blind. They can see, just not very well, which is where the echolocation comes in. They make high-pitched squeaking sounds that sends sound waves away from them, and it'll bounce off of objects and come back to bats. Now the bats, the thing that's really cool about their brains is they're able to decipher how long it takes those sound waves to come back to them and where they're coming from, so they can figure out the size of objects, how far away they are, where they are, which is really cool. Alright, so we're going to head down these stairs here. Please watch your heads. There's a little bit of low clearance. Another cool thing about bats is they're one of the world's best pollinators, aside from bees, of course. Aside from bugs, bats will eat fruit. They'll drink nectar of certain flowers. Now, when they do this, they get the pollen from the flowers on their fur, and they transfer that to other flowers, pollinating them, which gives us some of the fruits we have, like mangoes and bananas. It's thanks to bats that we have these fruits, which is another cool fact about them. Are there any questions so far? Well, we have next to no life in this cave. That is due to the fact that there's basically no nutrients in here. Now, the two main ways nutrients can enter a cave is through water or guano. Guano is bat droppings. Now, since bats don't live in here, we don't have enough of the guano, and also we have no natural water in here because, as I was saying, it's a really dry cave. The only thing that really lives here are small, hard-shelled insects, but it's only a few species of them. Reptiles won't come in here because they're cold-blooded, and it is too cold in here for them. It's about 52 to 56 degrees year-round. Any larger wildlife won't come in just because of the people issue. We scare them off. They don't want to be around people. The canyon, however, has tons of wildlife. Smaller rodents such as chipmunks, ground squirrels, they love the areas where there's a lot of people. They get snacks, that kind of thing. Yellow-bellied marmots love Pikes Peak. If you've been up there, you can see them shifting around in the rocks up there. They're super cute. We have bigger wildlife such as raccoons, bobcats, and then even bigger, mountain lions and bears. There's the saying, if you've been hiking in Colorado more than once, you've most likely been stalked by a mountain lion, which is a creepy thought because I've been hiking here my whole life. Now, you have no way of knowing whether or not they're stalking you because they are incredibly silent, which is cool and also kind of creepy. Now, the birds here, if you've seen, they're slightly larger white birds flying around. Those are seagulls. A lot of people are surprised to find that we have seagulls in a landlocked state, but they'll actually live anywhere there's a large enough body of water. And as soon as this group comes down, we'll be able to head up into the next room. Please use that rail if you need. The staircase is a little bit steep.
All right, guys, go left or get left. Here we go.
Nope, we're about halfway through. Awesome, welcome to the Temple of Silence. Now we are currently at the highest point in our cave at just over 7,000 feet above sea level. Now this makes us the second highest commercialized caving system in North America. We are second behind Glenwood Caverns in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. Now since we're at the highest point, that means we're also at the shallowest point. Maintenance people were changing light bulbs way in the back, and they said they could actually see tree roots poking through the ceiling. From our analysis of these roots, we estimate we're only about 20 to 30 feet below the surface, which is not far. Now this room has tons of cool formations. I'm going to point out a few of those to you. In the back, there are rows of stalactites that form a shape that sort of looks like a shark's mouth, which is why we have given it this super original name of Jaws. Up here in front of Jaws is our very own Leaning Tower of Pisa. And to the right of that is E.T.'s hand, still trying to phone home. And over here is Guide's lucky number 7. This is a halictite. We don't know how halictites form exactly, but our favorite theory involves wind coming through, pushing the water, those minerals to the side, so it started growing sideways. And over here is our saddest formation. This is a column except it is broken. It broke long before we found the room in 1929. And since they are at 2 different angles now and will never meet again, we like to call them Romeo and Juliet. Up here is ribbon stalactite, also known as cave bacon. This forms when a single drop of water falls along the same path over and over again, builds up to create that ribbon structure. It's our biggest piece of bacon, 4 feet long, 1 foot wide, and we have proudly named it Colorado bacon. All right,
that one looks
so
like a
as
finger.
they say, what comes up must come down. We will head back down these stairs. Once we get down, we're going all the way to the left. Please be sure to go left or you will be left behind.
What is that?
On what? Are there more coming? Oh, stop.
We got everybody.
We're here.
Alrighty, so welcome to Old Curiosity Shop. This is the most recently opened passageway in Cave of the Winds. It was opened in 1989, excavated the year before in 88. Now, we won't be in here too long. I'm just going to tell you what you should be looking for as we make our way into the next room. Once we get there, I'll tell you more about what you saw. So we will be making a left. The first thing you see will be immediately to your right. It is called Cave Onyx, also known as banded travertine. This happens when we cut the rock, buff it up all nice so you can see all those layers. It's really pretty. Next, it'll be up and to your left, a stalactite we nicknamed Old Bruiser, because Bruiser has taken out more guests and guides than any other formation here. So watch those heads. After Bruiser, we'll pass underneath 2 cage ceilings. The first is our nursery with baby stalactites. Second is cave coral. Now I'm going to point out each one as we pass. Please point them out to the person behind you so no one misses anything.
That's the Onyx.
And this up here.
Oh yeah, look, they've left it out for us. Watch that. That's what they're talking about right there. You're making me want a duck. I know, but I'm going to because I don't want to hit my head too. Better you go first then.
Here is that cave coral. Feel free to shine a light. And this is definitely the most unique formation you'll be seeing today. This one.
Bacon. Small bacon.
Oh, John, Aiden, come back here. I'm back.
Yeah, I need that. I need that for the video.
Aiden's my buddy now. And if he pushes me 1 more minute, he is done swimming. No, I don't want to hear it. John's doing nothing. You're being ultra sensitive.
Stay right there.
Oh yeah, take our photo. Take our photo.
The lighting's perfect. No, they're stalactites.
I'm just going to pause here for a moment. There's a kid's group in front of us.
Hold on. Go like this.
Are there any questions so far? You guys have any questions? Any questions?
No questions?
They're searching for more. We haven't found any since the last one, which was 89. We have about 5 miles of passageways mapped. But with caves, they're always finding new areas all over the world. So we have like professional, like geologists, professional cavers that come down here, which is pretty cool. Alright, so since nobody has any questions, I can make it even more awkward if you want with a few more dad jokes. So I told you about stalagpipes. Well, we also have stalagmites in here. Come on, you guys. These are grade A dad jokes. A pity laugh would be appreciated. Alright, you know, caves are pretty cool. They really rock. Alright, we can slide in here a little bit.
I was gonna say, Jacob, do you have one? You don't have any cave jokes?
Yeah, come take a look. There's fossils right here. There's little tiny shells right here. Yep, come take a look. Come look. There's fossils. Do you see the little shells in the rock? There's another one back here.
Oh, God.
Thank you. I'm in the cave with my mom. I forgot my flashlight.
It happens. That's good. Okay, you got a flash.
Remember, don't touch. Try not to touch. I know it's hard. See those fossils? There's little shells in the rock there. Isn't that cool? Those are millions of years old. Millions of years. That's crazy, right? Can you imagine being alive for that long? Millions of years? These are fossils here in the rock. There's little shells all throughout here. Let's move on so everyone else gets a chance to see. We don't, just because the caves were formed naturally. If anything were to have fallen through, it would have fallen while it was first forming. It's solid rock, the way the carbonic acid carved away at it. Alright, so I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what you saw in there. Now, the first formation you saw, the banded travertine, is really cool. It's sedimentary rock, and it acts sort of like the rings in a tree, how they tell the age of the tree. That's the age of the rock. Millions of years of that rock being built up layer after layer. And so when we cut it and shine it, you're able to see the years that have been put into creating the rocks all around here. Now, this first cage ceiling you saw was our nursery with baby stalactites. These babies are super young. Can anyone guess how young they are?
1 year old.
Yes, they are between 1,000 and 3,000 years old. Seems old to us, but for a stalactite, that's super young. When they start forming, they start with water in a ring shape. Those minerals get deposited in a ring, and each drop brings that ring downward, creating a vertical hollow tube we like to call soda straws. So if you remember, those ones in the nursery were straight up and down and flat on the bottom. That's why. After a time, the holes in the middle do get plugged with minerals, and the water is forced to come to the outside, which creates an icicle-like shape, wider at the top, pointy at the bottom. The second cage ceiling you saw was that cave coral, also known as white beaded anthodite. Now, we're very lucky here at Cave of the Winds with how this anthodite grows, in that twisted, root-like, gravity-defying way. We don't know how or why it grows like this, but only that it happens this way in higher elevation caves. Now, if you notice, it looks almost dusted with a white powder, sparkles a little. If you were to touch that, it would hurt like crazy. It'd feel like touching fiberglass or perhaps a cactus. Little shards would get in your skin. The only way to get it out is with acid. So if you're looking for another reason not to touch things, there's one for you. We will head into that ominous looking passageway to experience total cave darkness. Now, there is no electricity back there, so I'm going to turn my flashlight on. You're more than welcome to turn on phone lights if you have them. Once we get stopped, though, I am going to ask you to turn those lights off so you can experience that darkness. All right, please watch your heads as you go through here. There's a little bit of low clearance. Now, it is called Majestic Hall because of the cave coral back there. Shine your lights at the ceiling. You'll be able to find really big pieces of that coral. No,
Can you tell how tall Jacob is?
Huh?
This is what I should have done, Jacob. Oh, look at that.
Alright, once you get stopped, go ahead and turn those lights off, please. If you are using a phone, stick it in a pocket. Sometimes those screens like to turn on. Also, please be mindful of any other forms of artificial light, such as smartwatches. If yours lights up, just go ahead and stick a hand over it. Alright, so this is what the haunted lantern tours look like. Also what the original tours were like. There was no electricity when the cave first opened until July 4th, 1907. We had strings of Edison bulbs put in, some of his original designs. Obviously, there's been a lot of different lighting systems since then, but on those original tours, all you had was a flame to light your way. And as happens in a cave, sometimes the wind would blow through, blow that flame out. Wave a hand in front of your face. Can anyone see anything? That's good. You should not be able to see anything. But if you were left alone in here for about 5 to 10 minutes, you would start to see things because you would be hallucinating. Your mind would be trying to make up for the lack of stimuli your eyes should be seeing, and it'll start to project some of the last images you saw, which unfortunately for some of you would be my face. But don't worry, I won't leave us in here long enough for that to happen. Now that is one of the darkest darks in our natural world. The only other place besides underground it gets this dark is at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Not even night vision goggles will work in here because it is absolute absence of light. All right, my person in the back, are you responsible?
Sure.
Sure.
Awesome, we're going to go with yes because that sounds more confident because you're leading us out of here. Please go back into that room we were just in. If you find yourself crawling, you've gone the wrong way.
So there's a lot of different theories out there. Unless you want to go figure that out or study, I don't know.
Alrighty, my group, we're going to head up these stairs. Please use that rail if you need. Alright, Charlie, Jack. Alright, Charlie. We're going upstairs.
We don't have to worry about you.
Yep, we're going to go up. Alright everyone, welcome to Old Maid's Kitchen. Now, in the early 1900s, it was believed that if you were a woman and you reached the ripe old age of 18 and you weren't married, you were considered to be an old maid. Now, obviously, times have changed a lot since then, but that was the belief. So back in 1910, there were these two old maids. They came on that original crawling tour. They would have come out that hole down there. They were crawling for hours. They got in this room and they were disappointed. There's no cool formations in here. So they were talking with their tour guide. They said, hey, can we leave our 2 silver hairpins here? That way the next group has something pretty to look at. The tour guide said, sure, why not? They left him on the sledge here. Everyone went on with their lives. Now, 1 year later, these 2 old maids came back, except they weren't old maids anymore. They were married. And so the legend was born. If you toss something on this wall and it sticks, 1 year good luck, possible marriage. If you toss something on this wall and it bounces off or knocks somebody else's off, 2 years bad luck, possible divorce. Now people were throwing things up here for almost a century until 2008. We put up this plexiglass board so they wouldn't keep doing that. Because as you can see, it's getting a little bit heavy. We didn't want it to fall. It's a really cool story. But don't worry, we transferred all the magic from this wall into that brown box there. So if you wanted to try your luck, go ahead, toss a coin in. You're not allowed to miss on purpose, and the proceeds do go to charities. Now if you wanted to do that, go for it, toss a coin in on your way out. We will head back down these stairs, which I like to call the Hallelujah staircase, because hallelujah, they're the last stairs on the tour. Once we get down, we're going all the way to the left. Please use that rail if you need it.
Alright, so we are about to ascend these steps. While we're waiting, does anybody have any questions for me?
this a cool idea? Literally. I know you enjoyed that.
So it sounded like we had a couple of marriages coming up. Congratulations to all of you getting married. Alright, so this tunnel behind me is a man-made tunnel. It was put in the 60s to help the tour loop around more, and that way we don't have to backtrack through everything. It helps with time, helps with traffic. Now, if y'all don't mind, I have another bad pun for you. So, what is the cave's favorite animal? It's actually the duck. Yes, there is a little bit of low clearance through here. On your way out, be sure to take a look up into the dome. That is Zephyr's dome. Alright, follow me.
Did you say sucker dome?
Zephyr.
Zephyr.
Here, Lillian, come here.
Oh, look at that. Thought I heard water. Oh, that's cool. Let's see now. Huh?
Alright everyone, so welcome to the last room of our tour. This is Canopy Paul. This was the first room that they discovered. And the cave was actually discovered by these two young boys. Their names were George and John Pickett. When they were exploring the area, they heard this strange howling sound. Now that was wind blowing over these two sinkholes. I'll show you once we get outside. These boys were curious. They followed that howling sound. They climbed up into those sinkholes, walked across, saw a small hole in the ground, and they thought it would be a good idea to crawl in. They lit their candlesticks, got down on their hands and knees, started crawling. We estimate they only made it about 30 to 40 feet before the wind came through and blew those candlesticks out. Now the dark combined with the howling sound terrified them. They tore out of those caves back down in Empty Springs, all the while shouting about this haunted cave they had found. Now, of course, nobody believed them that this cave was actually haunted, except for one man. His name was George Snyder. He followed the boys' instructions, dug for 2 days straight, came up in this room right here, named it Canopy Hall. It's the biggest room in cave in the winds at 200 feet long, 60 feet wide, 35 feet tall. Now this is the part that I warned you about. This is where I turn into a salesman and try to sell you those photos back. Once we get outside, I'll hand your group your photo, take a look. Once again, no obligation whatsoever to buy those. If you don't want it, just hand it back to me. But if you do, the original photo is $15, each reprint an additional $5. Alright, follow me. We're gonna head out through this tunnel.
Huh. That's not bad. Oh wow, look at that. Oh, it's wet right there. Oh, it's bright, Jacob. Light. we got this. These are some steep stairs. Holy moly. Oh, yeah, that's what's growing. They're showing the roots growing through. Did you see that? What are you doing? Watch your feet. Is that a term? Professional cavers?
No.
No.